and I quote, "I'll be there in a minute. Give me a second."
Time is relative, folks. Time is relative.
Yes. So hey, cheers to everybody in the chat. They're a division rival. I don't care how many wins they get. Screw them.
That wasn't the take I was expecting to hear.
I want to gush over watching live Chris Tanev.
I think that we completely underestimate the skill it takes to play defense.
One highlight or several highlights does not a Calder trophy make.
I'm stepping in here. I'm going to be the crotchety old man here. They need to learn patience. They need to understand the tension, and everything, and the drama.
How dare! Look at this. How is McDavid not getting a penalty?
You guys need to calm down with this, okay? You guys need to calm down with it.
It is not a calm time in hockey world. I think emotions are very jarring right now, Tyler. Welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks. Subscribe wherever you get your audio. And what a week, like in terms of just everything that has happened this week. And like starting, let's say hello to Sean. Hello, Sean.
Hey,
Sean, how were the roads in Calgary?
right now it's nice and icy.
Chris, yeah. I mentioned, yeah, I can imagine. Chris, how are you?
I'm doing well, and I'm assuming same question. It's definitely been a big winter dump of snow that we've gotten in the past 2 weeks. It's been a little chaotic here, but I'd argue both Kelowna and Calgary have nothing on Vancouver as far as traffic chaos. Am I right?
You know, it was interesting because we had like an Arctic warning, Arctic cold warning for a while. Then we went to a snowfall warning. Then we went to a freezing rain warning within the last 3 weeks. So the roads are just bizarre. And yeah, it's kind of was crazy. Like there was one day, I think it was like Thursday, like everybody was just saying, just stay home. Like, just don't go on these roads. And
don't even bother.
Don't bother. Yeah. So the roads were really quiet. And then people then the next day went, oh, it should be fine. And then it gets messy again. So, yeah, it is just been in terms of weather. What a weird couple of weeks. Jeez.
And that, like, winter, like, overcasted the entire continent, it felt like Kansas City had minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
And then the snowstorm in Buffalo for the Bills game last week. It's been crazy.
It's been this just so bizarre. Like the rain last night in San Francisco for the Packers 49ers game. It's been something. So it's been a weird week in terms of the weather. Hope everyone has gotten through that. It's been a newsworthy weekend in terms of hockey. We'll focus mostly on the Canucks. We'll touch on the news around them and spend most of our time on that. But we do want to start. We do talk Flames. We'll start with the news out of the Flames today that Dylan Dubé did not play in the Battle of Alberta. It was reported he was sick. But he's also been healthy scratch within the last few games here. And he's just had a really tough season overall. And been just, but today they announced that he's been granted an indefinite leave of absence while the team while he attends to his mental health. Dylan is under the care of health professionals, and we will request that Dylan's privacy is respected during this period. And I just, from my perspective, I hope Dylan Dubé is doing okay. I don't want to even speculate what he's going through. That's none of our business. But I think the big lesson for me, and I did point this out, is Dubé and players, when players struggle, we've seen this even in Canucks Twitter, We've seen it in all types of hockey Twitter. We throw the bomb. We throw a lot of the criticism of the on ice play gets into some very personal things sometimes. And I think just a reminder, we don't know what players are going through when whatever their struggle is. I hope for the best for Dylan Dubé. I think there's a lot of people online just kind of having a reflective moment of how they've talked about players. And I think that that's a really healthy thing. But yeah, I hope Dylan is okay, whatever is going on.
Yeah, in terms of this sort of thing, not everything needs to be speculated on down to the granular detail. You can just leave it as it is, respect it for what it is, and kind of just hope for the best for him.
Yeah, I just hope for the best for Dylan Dubé going forward.
Yeah. We'll get to some of the other news, but let's start back on Friday. The Canucks sent a tweet out at 8:00 in the morning saying that there's a press conference, and the first reaction was, is it a PD contract? And then Dollywell and Johnston and the reporters said, no, it's not that. And then it was I believe it was Patrick Johnson that first speculated that it was a Rutherford extension. And then that was what was announced. And it is I've heard 3. Did anyone hear anything different before So
I think PJ's first tweet actually said 2, and I was under the impression of 2 for the first little bit. But then, after the fact, I definitely saw 3, I think, in the actual press release that they put on their website.
Yeah, I've heard. Sean, did you hear any different?
No.
Okay, so it's a 3-year. So at this point, it's a 3-year extension for Jim Rutherford, and I'll start. I think he took a lot of heat around this time last year. Actually, I think we're almost a year away from the hiring of Rick Tocchet. It's been a full 82 games with Rick Tocchet. It's after last night's game against the Leafs, Saturday's game against the Leafs, and I think he took a lot of heat of how he handled the Boudreau situation. They took a lot of heat from the JT Miller contract signing and all of what happened after that. But he really stabilized this franchise, and he did the one thing that Jim Benning could never do, and that was the conversation that we had really about both the Canucks and a little bit with the Flames as well, is about the idea of managing up. And he has done that really well. And he's been able to take the bullets for I don't want to say an inexperienced group of staff, but a staff that it doesn't need to be bombarded by the media. He has sat and taken it. And I think I for one think that this is the right thing, keeping Rutherford around for a while.
Yeah, he's done everything. He's done everything he can to turn the franchise around. He brought in Alvin, spearheaded, and has given Alvin the leash to be able to do what Alvin thinks to be done.
And not only that, but also purged all the Benning era staff. Well, a good chunk of the Benning era staff from the organization as well, to kind of help facilitate that fresh start.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did mention that it was a tough thing to do, but it was a needed thing to do. And there was a number of people that were let go, and he brought in some good minds. Specifically the hiring of Rick Tocchet and the staff, the coaching staff, kind of letting the Sedins be more involved. I don't see any reason to criticize this move at all.
I mean, is anyone criticizing this move?
No. I know, but I think, I guess some people are wondering if he's, and I hate the ageism. He is 72, but he wants to keep doing this, and I think he's got the humor for doing this. And
if he was the GM, maybe that has a little bit more of an argument. But as the POHO, he can be the overarching guy that just kind of oversees everything and gives his opinion and puts a stamp on things. Like, I don't think the whole ageism thing like really plays a factor in his current role.
No, but some people I wonder, but there's no reason to criticize this. I think this is the right move, and this will probably lead to. I think Friedman reported yesterday that there's talk of a Patrick Allvin extension, and that is something in the works. And we've talked about this before. He's a guy that's not getting enough credit for what he's done. I actually think he should be the GM of the year. I think that it would be that would be the vote for me.
The longer the Canucks sustain this winning clip that they're on throughout the season, like the longer that happens, the stronger that argument gets. But yeah, you're right in the sense that he's kind of being kind of under an underdog sort of angle in that contest.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that extension is coming. So I think what's good for going forward for the Canucks is the stability of the organization. There's some stability going on here that just hasn't happened within the last 7-8 years at least, where they're through the Benning era, we just did not see this stability or this sort of professionalism. And Rutherford took a lot of these things that were happening, the drama most of the cure is winning, let's be honest. But the fact that he's kind of just taken a lot of the other controversies out of the way and just let this team focus on hockey has been great. It just let everybody do their job, and he's you talk to me when you need to.
And kind of to that point, like, he realized last season that when he was just being his brutally honest self in pressers, he was almost putting his foot in his mouth. So after he kind of realized the blowback that those sort of comments were getting, he's like, you know what? I'm just going to take more of a reserved role here and not talk to the media as often. And that's kind of worked to everyone's benefit as far as the organization is concerned.
Yeah, this time last year, there was still a lot of noise and everything going on. You had, there were still issues with, I think, the Tanner Pearson issue. You had some front office issues. The coaching was they were just about to make that move, or just had made that move, and yeah, there's still a lot of that, a lot of noise around this team. Bad noise, but now it seems like ever since the Tocchet move was made, everything's just has quieted down, and they've gone about their business and found a way to do it quietly, professionally, and effectively. And yeah, he deserves a lot of credit for what the changes that he's had to make to bring in. He's had to make, and then we're seeing the results with them being at the top of the NHL, and we're getting closer to the end of January now.
And it was funny because we all kind of had initially mocked, and I say us as in like the general fan base, mocked when they put out like the whole marketing material about like accountability and structure and all those, buzzwords and whatnot. But clearly it's clicked, and clearly it's working. So all of our mocking and kind of making jokes of it definitely looks a little foolish in hindsight.
Most times our mocking does look foolish in hindsight. But I mean, to the Canucks credit, as Sean said, right? Like they changed their approach. Let's talk about some other hirings here that doesn't get a lot of conversations. Jeremy Colleton in Abbotsford has done a really good job. Ryan Johnson, they've kept Ryan Johnson, but Ryan Johnson doing a good job in Abbotsford as well. They brought in, we don't really know what the role of Derek Clancy was, but certainly I don't hear the fact that I don't hear about Derek Clancy is, as opposed to we were wondering what does John Weisbrod do. I think it's a sure sign here.
Well, Clancy's not part of the part of the
Oh,
team
you're right.
anymore.
Oh, that's probably.
He's a Leaf.
Oh, he is. Okay.
But to that point, though, you could basically swap out Clancy's name for Granato.
Yeah, you've got Granato. You've got
Castonguay.
Like, yeah, and then you also look at the players that they've brought in, whether it is via trade, via NCAA free agency, via CHL free agency, or actual NHL free agents that they've brought in. Because you've got Arshdeep Bains signed undrafted and signed out of the WHL, and he's pushing for a spot on this team going to the AHL All-Star game. You've got Max Hassan, who's been a revelation down in Abbotsford, becoming a legit option for the Canucks down the road here. Both McWard and Hirose have turned out to be, like, they're still a lot farther away than I think we initially thought, but they're showing like they could be options going down the road for the Canucks as depth pieces as well. And then you look at the Sam Lafferty trade, bringing in Bluger, bringing in Suter. Like, there hasn't really been a full swing and a miss here by this management team so far.
Like, the closest you could even argue that would be Kuzmenko, and I'm sure we'll get to him later on. But even still, like, that wasn't even a full miss. Like, his first season was damn good. It's just he's fallen off in his sophomore slump.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought he was quite good against the Leafs, though. I thought he showed a lot of energy, and
there was definitely that one shift where he drew the penalty and he was all over the puck. That shift, I definitely noticed him then.
Yeah, he's. I think you're starting to see him figure it out. He's definitely lost some of his confidence, which is always tough to gain back. But I think you're starting to see him figure it out again. And I think, and I'm not sure if it'll be with the Canucks or not, but I think he will figure it out, and he will be a 30-goal scorer in the NHL for at least a few more seasons.
For sure, and I think even Rutherford kind of touched on that to a certain degree as well in his Q&A part of that presser.
Yeah, he did mention whether it was with the Canucks or another team, he does believe he's going to be a good player again, or he's going to get back to that. I think that this is. I think with Kuzmenko, I think this is one of those situations that if you could, you probably would have had an opportunity to send him to Abbotsford to get kind of an understanding of the game, but he's kind of been put in a situation where you can't. So that's, I think, he's adjusting to a new game, and it takes time. The one other thing, just before we move into the Kuzmenko, what could happen to Kuzmenko here, the other thing that I did think was the two other things that I thought was interesting was, Aquilini coming. That was the happiest I've seen Aquilini. Like, I'm not that Aquilini is a sad person necessarily, but yeah, but it was like you could see that this is a guy with a kid at the state candy store, and look, we're gonna be okay, and he's getting all excited, and Rutherford has to calm the man down, which is okay. I think is amusing. I thought that was whole amusing.
Because I think twice in that presser, Aquilini talked about, like, this might be our year.
Yeah. And so it's, that clearly that relationship was much better than previous. So I think that for, that part of it, there's a stability within the organization, and, The other part was the practice. It sounds like they are closer on finding a practice facility. I have no idea. Again, I live here in Metro Vancouver. I have no idea where there's land that you could actually do that. So I'm going to be fascinated where they find this practice facility, wherever it is. Will be interesting to me, but it sounds like they're making some progress on that too. So, and I know that that's been one of Rutherford's pet project is getting a practice facility. So
maybe I'm a little bit behind the times on this, but has the Plaza of Nations property being completely ruled out as an option at this point? Because I thought that's what the initial buzz was about.
I haven't heard a place where they would put it. Like I have not.
The last one I heard was up at SFU. That was the last one I heard of any sort of buzz on a spot for that. So, and that was months ago.
That was, I think that was, that was probably at least a year ago that I heard that.
Yeah.
So
if there's places in Metro Vancouver that has lots of kind of open land that might be potentially used for that, you'd have to look at both UBC and SFU. Like they both have massive properties.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that will be interesting going forward. Wherever they put that will be fascinating. But let's now. So now we're in the point, of course, as mentioned, Aquilini all excited, Rutherford calming things down. Market's certainly excited right now, and they, of course, why not? Which has led.
Blame them. We're first in the league.
Which has led to the debate of what the Canucks should do as we head into the trade deadline. Of course, some names have come up, and Sean, you mentioned last week about do you want to reiterate your position, or has it changed?
Oh, I'll reiterate it. I think that it's what the Canucks should be doing, and actually it's what I think the Canucks are going to do, is look at players that can help for more than just this playoff run. If you're going to be making a move to add to this roster, you need to be adding it for having a multi-year look at this. So going after just a pure rental, especially if you're going after a top six forward, it doesn't make sense to me to just go after a rental. If you're going to go after someone, you better be someone that you're working on maybe getting an extension done right away if they're a UFA, or you're looking at someone with team control for at least one more year. So like a lot of the names that are out there, well, the two that are out there right now, Gensel and Lindholm, I don't think it makes sense. I think the cost of acquisition for both those players could be too high for what if they're just going to be pure rentals. And then if you're signing them, what's that cost? What is their cap hit going forward, and how does that help? What are the dominoes that happen with that when you've got Petey and Hronek to sign, let alone a bunch of the depth players on this team too?
Yeah, where I'm at is I don't, if the Penguins are saying, hi, here's Jake Gensel, give me Höglander, Kuzmenko first, I'm not saying yes, but I'm not necessarily saying no. I think I would like to hear, my first question is, can I at least talk to Jake about an extension? But that's kind of what I feel. I do agree with you, though. I don't necessarily think the Canucks should be in a pure rental mode. I do think that those type of things send the franchise back. I understand why people are kind of, not only just because of the excitement, but I kind of think about the Blue Jays run, not like the back in 2015, 16, when that one where they kind of put in their chips all in and got David Price and all of this. I think where people are coming from is you've got Vegas kind of stumbling and tripping. The Edmonton Oilers got off to while they're playing really good right now, they got off to a bad start that got a lot of people questioning where they are. You've got the Kings that are like sliding. The opportunity to take a step is absolutely there for the Canucks. So I kind of get where people are at, but I do think that this has to be done with some thought. And, I mean, you're not giving up Jonathan Lekkerimäki. That would be silly. You're not giving up Tom Willander. And I think that there's probably very few prospects. And I think Rutherford said that. I think that they're not interested in giving up prospects. So I think you're going to have to make a shrewd hockey trade to do that. I mean, the other part of this is that the Oilers will add. We'll get into that in a bit. The Vegas will add, and that the Kings will need to add, and we'll get into why a little bit later as well. So I do think the Canucks need to do something, but what they need to do, I don't know. Like, if you can get one of those at a reasonable extension, maybe let me ask this way. If Pettersson was signed, would your position be different on a rental?
If it was just Hronek, that was the big guy that would need to be signed. Yeah, maybe that might change my opinion. PD's a pretty big domino to add to that. So I, at least for me personally speaking, I would probably say that I would probably be a little bit more open to maybe a bigger splash or something a little bit more, I guess, short term in the overall view of a potential deal. But with the current state of things, I don't think my opinion changes.
Yeah, I would say that if PD was signed and he was signed for the long term, I think you could make a case for it. But part of why you need to make this a longer term approach, make sure that the Canucks are acquiring a player that isn't just a rental, is that you don't want this to be a one and done year. You don't want this because you don't know how long that the playoff run's going to be. It could be you could win one round, you could not win a round. You could win one round, lose in the second round, and then next year the wheels could fall off, and it's a one and done. You could be like the Flames after the 21-22 season, right? That's what you want to avoid for the Canucks. So you want to make sure that you're sending the right message to the team, that you're rewarding them for the work they've done this year, but you also need to be sending the right message to players like Hronek and Petey because you want them to be signed locked in long term.
Yeah, and then you also have to kind of think about the chemistry of the team when you're doing this as well. So, even Boston, when they were adding Bertuzzi, Hathaway, and Orlov at the trade deadline, they felt that affected the chemistry of the team. You kind of look back at the Final Four and what their trade deadline acquisitions were. Dallas brought in Dadonov. Vegas brought in Barbashev. I don't think Florida really did anything, and I don't really think Carolina did anything. Nothing significant. There wasn't a huge significant piece in any of the there wasn't a big splash. It was more of a thoughtful trade. They didn't give up. It wasn't Tanner Jeannot for 9 draft picks, or it wasn't what the Leafs ended up doing with acquiring basically changing their team at trade deadline. And then Brad Treliving rechanging this team again before the regular season. So I do think that, especially when as late as the trade deadline is, and really, I think the other thing that has to be played into the factor here is when you bring in a new player, there is an adjustment to I think it takes a lot longer than people realize. I mean, I'll use Mackenzie Weegar as a better example than Jonathan Huberdeau because he said it was a tough time getting started with the Flames, and now he's got his footing. But even Connor Garland for the first part of the Connor Garland career, people were like, "What the hell is this Connor Garland even do?" And now can you live without Connor Garland? No. So it takes. I just think it takes time. So I do think you need to be smart. But I also, I mean, it really also, I don't know how, I think it's going to be interesting what the other teams are going to do. And I wondered if they need to be a little bit more desperate than the Canucks do.
I mean, just based off of where
the Canucks are
everyone else is in the standings. Yeah, I'd probably say that the Canucks don't need to be nearly as drastic and probably should be a lot more measured, especially when you factor in like the OEL buyout ramifications and everything that and then also what we were already talking about with having to re-up PD and Hronek.
Yeah. I think the Canucks need to do what the Jets did last year. Get a Nino, get a Nemestikov, Nino Niederreiter make those type of acquisitions. And you're seeing the benefits of that more this year than you probably did that last year. But that's kind of the players I'm like that, not those two specifically, but that's kind of in the realm I'm thinking the Canucks need to go. Although I love Jake Gensel and I think he would be an outstanding ad, but if you're pure rentaling Gensel or you're pure rentaling even if you're pure rentaling Lindholm, and I love Lindholm, everyone knows that I love Lindholm, and I think he would be a great ad. That is a pure rental, but also that contract at $9 million when you've got other people with some pretty significant contract questions coming up here, and a number of free agents outside of PD and Hronek that you need to deal with as well. Those are two tough rentals to make. But would be fascinating to get if you're the Canucks.
Yeah, to quote a meme that probably most of us are familiar with, the price is too damn high, both in acquisition costs and then also in re-upping them.
Yeah. Yeah, you're looking at probably giving up similar to what you got for Horvat last year, which is a roster player, a prospect, and a first-round pick. To even get into the discussions. That's the starting asking price for both those players. So you're looking at if they're gonna, I think basically Rutherford said they're not trading any of their prospects that haven't turned pro. So that's Lekharamaki's off the board, Will Anders off the board, Hunter Brzeskevich is off the board. Those are your three big ones that aren't playing AHL or anything like that right now. And then you've got so then you're looking at players in the AHL essentially so Podkolzin's the big name there, who probably has the most value.
Maybe an Achi.
And if I was a GM, I would be asking for Baines over Ratu.
But the Canucks aren't. I don't think the Canucks are going to be willing to move Baines at this point. I think he's a local kid, so adding that and someone who's going to do everything he can to make the team and be that local. Just having that being unsigned to AHL to NHL is also huge for culture and just the feeling within the locker room always helps. I don't see the Canucks looking at trading Arshdeep Baines at this point. So I think you're probably looking at Podkolzin as the most likely trade chip here. So and then you're going to have to acquire any player of note. You're going to have to make the cap work. So that's where Kuzmenko comes in. And then the first round pick. So is that worth it for a pure rental? I don't think so.
if this was closer to the end of the contention window, then you can maybe get a little bit more drastic and brash with your decision making. But considering that the Canucks are ideally at the dawn of their contention window, you don't want to make those drastic moves this season.
Yeah.
You've got the basically the window I look at it right now is the Hughes contract and the Demko contract. Once those contracts are up, it's going to be a whole different ball game, and maybe the window can stay open with the right moves, and they can get those guys signed again. But once those contracts are up, your cap situation is going to be drastically different, and you're going to have a lot of roster turnover because of it.
My only point is I think it's good to listen, but I think you have to kind of decide, at this point, what are you going to do? I listen to the rental, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to sign them and make these.
And I said, I think the Canucks have already gotten one of a rental in Zadorov.
Yeah, I think he would want to stay, but I just think it's going to be too much term or too much money.
Yeah. Because they've got him. You've got Joshua. Dakota Joshua is going to need a new contract, and he's played really well this season.
I would think that he has to be other than PD and Ronick, the obvious ones, he's got to be a priority to sign, in my mind.
I don't know. Because I think he is he's a bottom six player. It depends on whether or not they trade Podkolzin, because Podkolzin has started to take steps this year. He is coming, it doesn't look as great on the stat line for him, but he also did have that really bad head injury at the beginning of the season to work through. And if he's still in the organization, and then he might be ready for to step up and to take a role like Höglander has this year.
So you're looking at this more at go ahead.
And you've also got Arshdeep Bains too. He's not as big as Dakota Joshua, but he's also not someone who's afraid to throw his body around. He's been penalty killing down in Abbotsford. You need players like that to step up for cap reasons, right? One of the biggest issues with Jim Benning was the fact that he was bringing in signing bottom six players to deals that were 1, 2, 3, were like 1 or 2 years too long, and a little bit higher on the cap hit. And yes, the cap hit's going up. The cap is going up next year, but the Canucks are still going to be tight to it once PD's signed, and I totally expect him to sign. Once Ronick's signed, they're still going to have to be very conscious on how they allocate where they're allocating their cap. So Dakota Joshua is someone who's played really well under Rick Tocchet, but if he's wanting three or more years on a contract, especially I'd say you have to walk away, and you have to trust your pro scouts to find someone else.
So you're basically kind of viewing this more as almost like a Tyler Mott 2.0 sort of situation, in the sense that
it could be. Yeah, it's just you can't be overpaying players in the lower half of the lineup, and you have to trust that you've got the whole point. One of the big things that Rutherford and Alvin have done is bringing in depth players like Christian Wolanin on the blue line. But you have to trust that players like Podkolzin can take a step, or Steve Baines can take a step up and play in a fourth or third line role next year.
If he wants more than 2, I think I'd probably walk away. But if you can keep him in a 1.5 in a couple of years, I don't think it hurts. I mean, I guess it's whatever.
It all depends on what he's looking for. Yeah, but but that's the whole thing. Is he will be a priority to figure out where he's at, and if he's going to be if he's going to be a part of the team next year and beyond. But if he's not, I don't think it's something that is necessarily a game breaker for them. As good as that third line has been, I think you can find players that can do what Dakota Joshua does elsewhere, and probably for cheaper.
I like him. That's just me though, Kim. But
I like him too, Kev. I'm just saying it's not with it being a cap system. There's only so much money to go around, and you need to find. And the Canucks are going to have Myers' spot to fill. Zadorov needs a new contract. You've got Teddy Blucher, who's played really well, needs a new contract. They're going to have to make decisions. They're not going to be able to keep them all. And you have to look at where your strengths are in the depth of with the team. And you've got, like I say, you've got Podkolzin, you've got Arshdeep Baines down in Abbotsford both well. Aturatu is starting to take a step too. So you've got options up front, I think, that you can move on and not lose too much. Or you can always just go out and find the next Dakota Joshua, who, remember that he was signed and he was basically an AHLer before he came to the Canucks, and he's worked his way up.
And then caught fire on that line this season.
Yeah. The don't nickname me line. Don't give me a nickname. Yeah. We don't want a nickname. We prefer to be called by our names, Theodore, Connor, and Dakota. Thank you. Also, in a couple of years, you will have to deal with a Brock Besser contract in 2 seasons.
Exactly, right? You got to find a way to figure it out. Like that third line could just all be gone next year. Honestly, because I could see them trading Garland because he's making 4.5 on the cap. Anyways, I don't think that third line will be intact next year, because Bluger needs a new deal. He's played really well. Dakota Joshua needs a deal. He's played well, and as good as Garland is, he's making 4.5 on the cap, and that's not, if in a cap system, that's not effective. That's not necessarily your ideal for a third line.
No. And I also think I think quite likely there'll be a conversation. The trade conversation with Kuzmenko will come up in the offseason. I don't think it happens in season. I don't think he's gone. I think he's here at the trade deadline, but I think in the offseason, I think you're quite likely looking at Kuzmenko a trade. I mean,
it depends on who they're targeting to bolster that top six. Because they're going to need to make the cap work, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's the obvious money trade is Kuzmenko because of his cost, but where teams are at with Kuzmenko, who knows, right? And you also got Casey DeSmith to deal with too. And I mean, yes, replaceable, but he's been a really good backup. But where are you with Artur Silovs, right?
Yeah.
So there are certainly a lot of questions about where the Canucks are at, and it's great, great that they're kind of in this position right now, and see what happens. For sure. Anything else with the Canucks we need to?
Well,
You want to
last night's
discuss?
game was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say, we haven't even, 45 minutes in, we haven't even talked about the Leafs game last night.
Oh, can I? If there's a team that just reminds me of what the Oilers were, that Leafs team is so Oiler, it's not even funny. They're in the offensive zone, they're good. In their own end, they're not good. It's bad. But yeah, it was a fun game.
It was very, very fun. Just not good giving up that 3-goal lead.
Yeah, it was too much of a roller coaster for my liking, but overall a very fun and entertaining game.
Yeah, and I mean, there's Leaf fans angry at Tyler Myers right now. So, as he took on,
I just love how he basically brought out like a version of what Bufflin used to do, headlocking Riley while punching what was his name?
Tavares?
Yeah, I think
Tavares, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but even Zadorov with his hit on Nyes, I think that was a turning point. Yeah, it was a fun game to watch. Both fan bases were into it. It was a lot of fun. It was like,
I do want to thank Craig Conroy for trading Zadorov to the Canucks. Like, he's been fantastic. Him taking out Liam O'Brien in that Arizona game was that got me going.
It was funny too because he went like he kind of just hit him, bopped him like he was like
Andre the Giant.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he is. No, he's going to make mistakes, but yeah, there's no question about his he's got talent. He's got he brings a lot of emotion, and I think he has been really good he's been really good in Vancouver. I totally think it was a good, no problem with the ad, right? Like, no, for sure. What happened, and he's happier. He's happy there, and I think it's great. I mean, but the question again will be, can you keep him? Who knows? We'll see.
I mean, I would willingly give up the money that we're paying Myers and put that towards Zadorov.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not saying Zadorov's a $6 million man. Don't twist my words that way. But I'm just saying, like, as far as like if we're going to like reallocate Myers as cap money at the end of his deal, I would gladly give a sizable chunk of that to Zadorov to keep him.
He's making 3.7.
I don't think he's making. I don't think he'll make too much more than that. It's just going to come down to how much term he's wanting.
I mean, I feel like we're on pretty good terms with Dan Milstein, so maybe we can work something out. I mean, how many players do we have from Gold Star?
Well, I've heard a rumor that there was a talk that the press conference was changing the nickname from Canucks to Gold Star. So that was, it was one of the, But there's again, just going back to the conversations we had, there's so many other decisions that you do have to be careful what you do allocate Zadorov for. And someone's going to overpay him.
Yeah.
That's the way that the market is.
Fair.
Anything else with the Canucks?
At this point, I think we're good.
No.
All right. Let's turn our attention. Let's do the more juicier, meatier conversation. The other two topics, I think, are going to be a little harder to talk about, and just when we get into why. But one of the things that has come up, of course, there are a number of teams, including probably the Leafs last night, that probably are like, they need to figure out their goaltending situation. which the Canucks do not. A few names that have been out there include Jacob Markstrom. Elvis Merzlikins has flat out admitted he would like a trade out of Columbus. There's Dylan's John Gibson from Anaheim. Jake Allen, I think, is going to be a name out there in. Oh, there's one other conversation we have to get into too, but we'll do that one after. Then there's Jake Allen, and you got that. You've got a number of teams like Jersey has plummeted in part because of their goaltending. We talked about the Leafs. There is a lot of teams that just are in desperate need for goaltending. I mean,
Carolina picked up Spencer Martin out of desperation.
Yeah, because A, they're getting hurt, or B, they are. Yeah, it's not quality goaltending, and it's becoming a really fascinating situation. Of course, one of the names that has come up, and of course, there's a lot of Flames fans pushing this one, and it's Jacob Markstrom, thinking that either A, Dustin Wolf is ready, or B, they can get something for Jacob Markstrom. I just think that this entire conversation has become quite fascinating. There's almost more goaltender that it's almost a saturated market now.
It totally is.
Yeah. Like, for me, just from the Flames perspective, I don't think you're trading Markstrom in season. I think even if the Flames fall out of the playoffs for that, was that me? Sorry. But that is probably me here. Yeah, I'm thinking that there's probably ultimately going to be a lot more moves in the offseason than there will be at the trade deadline, just for two reasons. I think there'll be more cap space. We'll know where we are in the cap. And B, I just think it's a huge adjustment from a goaltender to go to one team and to another.
It is a tougher acquiring, especially a starting goaltender is tough for in mid-season. Yeah, you're changing schemes, you're changing communication with your defense. It's a lot tougher to do. So if there's going to be a trade for a goaltender, a big one, I think we'll see it within the next 2 weeks.
So that way it gives them a legitimate runway before the end of the season.
Yeah, allows you to not feel rushed getting it into. Just look at Ryan Miller being traded from Buffalo to St. Louis, and then just not being the same Ryan Miller that he was in Buffalo or even in Vancouver. So it's just it's not gonna. The more time you have for the goalie to get into the swing of things and learn the system, learn the communication and the tendencies of the defense in front of them and the players in front of them, the better. So if there's going to be a team making a trade for a goaltender, whether it's New Jersey, whether it's LA, whether it is even, I think Edmonton's okay with Skinner and Pickard right now. If Edmonton's picking up anyone, it might just be a backup to replace Pickard. Let alone what Toronto might do. But for Flames fans, I don't see Markstrom as an option right now. I think they're it's gonna have to take a blow the doors off type offer to get them to even go to Markstrom to ask him to waive his no movement clause to make that happen. And he's got a brand. He's still his kid is still very, very young. He's got and all that. So I don't know if he'd be really that open to moving right now, especially mid-season. If you do it in the summer, allows them to not feel rushed for that move. So for Flames fans, I think you need to just sort of temper your expectations. I don't expect to see Markstrom get moved this season. If we're going to see a goaltender get moved, it'll be Merzlikins. and then I think the rest will get sorted out in the offseason.
Yeah, I think a lot of these teams that are in need of goaltenders are just they're going to go with whatever they have and kind of say their prayers and hope it's for the best and wait till the offseason for kind of making that impact move. I mean, from Markstrom's perspective, he just got married a couple months ago. He just had a baby. He's not even 1 year old. I don't think he wants to uplift this family at this particular point. Like I wouldn't want to uplift my family if I just got married and had just had a baby. So you have that, plus you're playing the toughest position in hockey, goaltender. You can't do that to him. Like I think the right thing to do with Markstrom is wait till the off season. A guy like Elvis, he wants out, sure. And there's probably some other, like if you're wanting a depth piece, sure, like maybe a Peter Mrazek, maybe a Peter Mrazek could be moved, but I think it sounds like the Blackhawks are going to try to sign him, which is not a bad idea. I mean, you still need a goaltender, but I mean, maybe the other one is maybe Varlamov, but Lou Lamoriello does things in complete and utter
Silence.
Yeah, like it literally is in monk silence here. So yeah, I don't think that this goaltending market, and I don't even know if this trade deadline market is going to be the fireworks that everyone is hoping. Even overall, like
it's with everyone's so close to the cap. It's trying to figure that all out is going to be, yeah. It's going to nix many deals.
Yeah, the dead cap has definitely hampered any sort of trade deadline, sort of like what TSN used to get for ratings for those sort of shows has completely plummeted thanks to the flat cap.
Yeah. Yeah, and just on the other side, for a lot of Flame fans, well, Dustin Wolf is completely and utterly ready. I have 4 words for you. Stuart Skinner and Devin Levi. Just watch what has happened in Buffalo. They thought he was ready. He wasn't ready, and he's back in the minors. And they have a huge goaltending problem right now. So
my argument with that one though is that Dustin Wolf's already spent enough time in the AHL. Devin Levi has not. He signed out of college last year, and they're rushing him. Stuart Skinner, taking that steps. It's not gonna go smoothly. Not for goaltenders. You're gonna have good years. You're gonna have bad years. Dustin Wolf is ready. Does that mean he's gonna come up and dominate? No, but he is ready to be an NHL goaltender.
He's already proved everything.
4 year in Calgary and with the Wranglers, and then have him say, "Okay, you are competing for a job starting next year, and you're on the team. Get yourself ready." Right. That's what I would do with Wolf.
Yeah, because correct me if I'm wrong, Wolf has won AHL goaltender of the year 2 years in a row now, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So so to Sean's point, like he's basically already proven himself at the level that he's currently playing at. So yeah, it definitely feels like he's ready for that promotion. But I guess the question that I have is, and this is purely because I don't pay super close attention to the Flames, but why is all the, I guess, rumor mongering about Markstrom and maybe not Vladar? Like I know, like the Kevin Weeks effect is its own separate animal, but I'm more talking about just off of performance.
Kevin Weeks right now, sorry, because he's close to bouncing back to the form that he was a couple of years ago. He's played really well. Like his save percentage at the start of the year was really low, but it wasn't really fair to him because the Flames are still trying to figure out their system, and they're kind of a little bit close to that, but he's been really good this year, and they think that this is the time to trade. Fans are like, this is the best you're going to get at Markstrom, so now's the time to do it. They're looking at Markstrom like we look at our vehicle. Oh, it's operating awesomely. Let's sell it now because this is be the best time to do the sell.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, and it's also he is older, makes $6 million on the cap for another 2 years after this year. Like it would open up more cap space and than trading Vladar would. So
Yeah.
Fair points.
Yeah. The other big story that happened, and I almost forgot. It's been a busy day, but speaking of monks and speaking of doing things in secret that nobody knows, Lou Lamoriello appeared in the news yesterday, and he brought out Patrick Waugh as the new coach of the New York Islanders. And people were like, what in the living hell is going on here? But honestly, I got to tell you, I think that this is a brilliant move. It really is. This is a guy that admitted he screwed up his time at Colorado. He went and won a Memorial Cup with the Quebec Remparts. Lamoriello has had a love for the Montreal Canadiens organization for years. Remember, he won a cup with Claude Lemieux. He won a cup with Stéphane Richer. He's won a cup with Jacques Lemaire and Larry Robinson. It's probably not as far-fetched as people thought. It just was completely and utterly out of left field.
Not only that, but just the fact that like no firing of Lambert and then a coaching search and then like an interim head coach or anything like that. No, it was just here's our new head coach. By the way, we fired our old head coach.
yeah.
Well, there were reports even on Friday that I saw that there were some reporters that were covering the Islanders that were suggesting that the team quit on Lambert. So I wasn't surprised about the coaching firing. I think that it just seemed like that didn't work, but it turned out unfortunately that the hire was the surprise out of all of this.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah, because the Islanders were in the playoffs and like battling for like second or third in the division for a little bit there, and then they've lost 4 straight. They're 2-6-2 in their last 10. They're now behind the Devils and the Capitals, and they're not and they're like their goal differential is -21. Like it's. They definitely needed a change, and it's not like they've got assets that teams are willing to trade for right now with all the long-term deals that these older players are signed to. So you got to come in with someone who, Patrick was the Quebec Remparts were what was it? I think it was Scott Wheeler from. Is he still a TSN?
No, I think he's with the Athletic and he covers the Bruins, I believe.
Yeah. But he talked about the Remparts being basically a professional hockey team with how how well they were coached and how structured they were. So that could be a really good match with the personnel that are on the Islanders. You've got Dobson anchoring that blue line. You've got Sorokin, who's probably one of the top. He's a top 5 goalie in the world. And then you don't necessarily have any game breakers up front, but you've got some solid players. You got Horvat and Barzell. You've got Brock Nelson, Anders Lee, JG Pajot. Like they've got players in there that are good, solid NHLers and good, solid sort of like, but they're not. There's no game breakers. But if you can get the right system in there, they could be. I wouldn't be surprised if they jump right back into the playoff race and are going to be a very tough team. A tough out for anyone in that Metropolitan Division.
Yeah, and you listen to a guy that, as of course, one of the greatest quotes in hockey history. I can't quite understand Jeremy because I've got 2 Stanley Cup rings plugged in my ear.
Yeah, that's a great Patrick.
Yeah. So, and then you got Patrick Waugh, John Tortorella, and Peter Laviolette in the same division.
Whew.
Yeah.
Torts versus Waugh is something will happen. I know it.
Can we see like a Torts and Harley like 2.0 sort of situation?
Except that Torts and Waugh take the opening face off themselves.
That would be hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah. Bring in Mike Vernon as a guest assistant coach.
Yeah, forget a goalie fight. We want a coach fight.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah. I think it's an interesting hire, and I think he's going to be a lot more successful than people think. And Lou, for his secrecy and odd rules and all of that, he seems to know what he's doing. So, just this is not expected to be announced until Monday, but it sounds like the Edmonton Oilers are going to get Corey Perry. I think that there's going to be some fans that are like, "Whoa, wow, this is a good sign," and I think there's going to be some fans that are not comfortable with this. And for me, I totally get it, and it's not about what happened with Chicago. I have no idea about that whole situation, and I don't want to speculate about that whole situation, but he's not been known to be a good human being on and off the ice. And yeah, I can get why people would be a little uncomfortable with that, but it'll be an interesting signing for the Oilers. He can still play. I'll give him that. He can still play at 38 years old, and he can still skate.
I mean, the Oilers they've got Vander Kane, so
yeah.
they're not.
And they also got Duncan Keith, so they're clearly not shy on picking up potentially controversial players.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's that will be interesting. And kind of a lot from last night. It's as Sea of Red Central said, though, from entertaining perspective, it's too bad Matthew Tkachuk is not on the Flames anymore, because that would have made the Battle of Alberta far more entertaining. Yeah.
Yes.
But Marty Pospisil, I'm sure, will be able to do some of that for the Flames in the future. Speaking of future, a confusing story at best has happened this weekend, where 5 AJHL teams have reportedly moved and officially announced by the BCHL have moved to the BCHL. And I feel like this is a story that is not full come out yet. I feel like there's a lot more that's come out. BCHL announced that the 5 and the AHL basically canceled games this weekend. Olds versus the Blackfelt Bulldogs, Drayton Valley versus Brooks, and Spruce Grove versus Calgary, Whitecourt, Calgary Canucks. Whitecourt at Brooks were the 4 games that were exampled are canceled, and the teams that are going include the Calgary Canucks.
Nope.
Wait, no, you're right. Sorry. Hang on. Let me find
I have it in front of me here. So the 5 teams that are moving to the BCHL are the Brooks Bandits, the Okotoks Oilers, the Sherwood Park Crusaders, the Spruce Grove Saints, and the Blackfalds Bulldogs.
Now, Brooks has been a pretty strong team in the AJHL for a while. So that would be a pretty significant move. But this whole thing, it feels to me that I feel like I don't know the whole story. But where I would come from here is, I think, unfortunately, this is affecting the kids. And I really like the kids need to be playing hockey, and that's the entire process of this. And the adults need to grow up and figure this shit out, because I don't think that this is what is happening here is doesn't seem fair to the kids in the BCHL or the AJHL. If you're canceling games, if you're postponing games, you're suspending teams, like you really, I think there needs to be some clarity what's going on here. And I'm not sure I'm very comfortable in speculating what's happening because I have no idea.
I can understand how that's definitely a big slap in the face and negative story for the AJHL, but how is this potentially bad for the BCHL?
Well, you're poaching 5 teams from a league. This would be a comparison is what's happening in college football, where basically the Pac-12 has basically dissolved because the Big Ten walked in and took 11 of the 12 teams. So UCLA, University of Washington, University of Arizona, and a few USC, all of the big teams have moved over to the Big Ten, which basically dissolved the league. This has the potential to do that with the AJHL.
I mean, yeah, that's bad for the AJHL, but I don't see how that's bad for the BCHL.
It's not. They're gaining from it, but they're also, I think that the anger from the AJHL part would be you're taking teams and that has the potential to fold a league.
Yeah, I guess it just comes down to the semantics. You made it sound like it was bad for both sides, whereas I'm just like, it looks pretty one-sided to me.
I don't think this is a good thing for the BCHL either, necessarily. I'm not necessarily convinced that this helps the BCHL. You've got probably more travel to deal with. You've got more expenses to deal with. And can you be too big of a league? Like, I don't know that this is a great move for the BCHL. I'm not entirely convinced that it's the case. It could be, but there's some pitfalls here that I could see happening too.
But like you said earlier, I feel like the whole story hasn't gotten out yet. I feel like everyone is just kind of sitting in shock at the fact that the 5 teams are switching leagues, but none of us really know the motivation as to why or what underlying issue led the teams to want to do that. Like, I feel like there's still the entire other half of the story that still needs to kind of come out at some point.
Yeah, that's a lot of it. There's still a lot of this story to come out. Another interesting twist to this is the Okotoks Oilers were scheduled to be the host for the National Junior A championship as well. So that'll probably get moved as well.
Yeah. So, like, is the AJHL? Does it still get talked on in the sport in the sports reports? Do you hear are they well attended games in Calgary? Or
I'm not too sure, honestly. I don't hear too much about AJ. I think it's but I'm also in Calgary, where it's an oversaturated market for hockey. When you've got Flames, Wranglers, Hitmen. Then you got the Calgary Canucks in the AJ. They're so far down the
totem pole,
down the totem pole that it just doesn't. You don't get too much. But if you go out to Okotoks, I'm sure all those places there's a little bit more buzz for them. But Calgary just doesn't have there's too many other things going on that it just there's not enough. Not much talk about it in Calgary.
I grew up in Sundre, which was just 20 minutes away from Olds, so I definitely attended quite a handful of Olds Grizzlies games growing up. But we're talking like a generation away from the last time I attended an AJHL game. So my opinion probably is not relevant.
Well, I mean, and the reason that you're not in Alberta now, so that was the other thing.
That too.
Yeah. Anything else before we get to one last question?
I think we basically covered most of the headlines.
Okay, here is the one last question. Who is on the bigger hot seat? Sheldon Keefe in Toronto or Todd McClellan in Los Angeles?
I feel like the easy
Toronto
answer,
just because of the it's Toronto.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that a very similar thing in the sense of like I feel like the easy answer is Sheldon Keefe just because it's Toronto, whereas like yes, there's a pretty diehard fan base for the Kings in California, but it's just not the same intensity that Toronto is. The hockey center of the universe, right?
My only counter for that, though, is you've got two of your franchise stalwarts career on the certainly at the back nine, if not almost heading into the room here, and Anze Kopitar and Drew Doughty. And yes, they did win cups, but they probably felt with the moves that have been made that you felt like you were this much closer to it. And got to wonder about from that perspective. I think it's quite fascinating. I mean, they may not have the fan anger that is in Toronto, but from a player pressure point of view, and you lost to the Oilers twice in a row. His seat is safe.
Promising young core too. Yeah.
Yeah, you gave away a good chunk of it.
Yep.
Yeah, whatever quote unquote rebuild that LA did, a lot of that is gone. You've got Byfield's taking a step this year, but outside of that, you've got Brant Clark and Jordan Spence on the blue line, and the rest of it is a lot more sort of journeymen and older players. Like they drafted Alex Turcotte very high. He's not turned out to be he's not in the NHL right now. So yeah, I think they're both on hot. Both their seats are hot. I just think that just the volume and it being Toronto, I think it is and let alone that you've got Brad Treliving there, and he hasn't made a coaching change there yet. He hasn't had that opportunity yet.
Yeah.
Kevin, you brought up
his right.
Yeah, Kevin, you brought up good points, but ultimately, I think Sean is ultimately correct in the sense that, like, yeah, when it comes down to it, the Toronto factor just kind of tilts it unfairly almost to one direction.
Well, no, I don't disagree. But I do think it's. I think Keefe is the next coach in trouble, for sure. Just because Treliving hasn't made that move, you've just signed William Nylander to that lengthy contract. You've got this core four that you got to win with, and you haven't made it past the second round, and quite frankly, it is entirely possible, and I believe will happen. Sorry, Devin. I believe the Maple Leafs will not make the playoffs. I think they will fade their way out, unfortunately, because they have not solved that defense and that goaltending, and I don't think that they're going to be able to. So I think, to me, Keefe is LA should make the playoffs at least. The question is can they get by Edmonton, and can they get by Vegas, and can they get by Vancouver? And I would put them fourth right now with those three.
Yep. And not only that, they have to get themselves out of this funk that they're currently in as well.
Yeah, and they need a goalie.
Yeah, so they're one of those teams that needs a goalie because Copley's out long term. Talbot's not. They need another, and then their third goalie is David Rittich. Yeah. Big save, Dave. Edmonton and Colorado, I think are teams that would be looking for like a 1B or a backup. And then you've got you've got Carolina's is going to be needing a goaltender. New Jersey. So then looking for like starters. So if we see a move, I think it will be New Jersey, and I think it might. wouldn't be surprised if they go after Merzlikins, not Markstrom.
Yeah. As I said, I think Markstrom will be off season in my mind. I think there'll be more movement in the off season.
Oh yeah.
I think that's when the fascinating trade stuff's going to happen. It's not going to be at the trade deadline. So, I mean, it will be. It's still going to be fascinating from the Flames' perspective of what happens with Lindholm, Tanev, and Hanifin. But I honestly have a hunch they're not going to trade him. I think they're going to take the gamble. I
mean that'd be quite the decision to make, because Conroy said in his press conference that he can't be in the introductory press conference early on in his tenure, saying that he has to learn from the Tkachuk and Goudreau situation, and they can't let players walk for nothing. So
I just have this hunch. That's just me. Anyway, I feel like we're kind of rambling. Is there anything else?
No,
don't think so. And I think a couple of us at least want to get to the football game that is on.
Yeah, 3 of us want to get to the football game, because there's going to be. Well, anyway, just a quick thing. This is the most underrated sports weekend of the calendar. I know everybody talks about October, but this weekend with the conference finals, Hockey Day in Canada, was a great sports weekend. Just pointing that out. Anyway.
Oh, it was fantastic.
Agreed.
Yeah.
How do we follow you?
Bearded Canucks 03 on Twitter.
I'm at Schneids, SCHNEIDZ on all the social medias.
Tyler, who we shout out because he had literally his own Hockey Day in Canada of officiating as TNOBLE. And Devin Gordhouse 09. I am KEVOLE on all the social medias. We will be back next weekend to talk more hockey. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now. Oh, shoot. Bye again. Bye for now. Okay. As I try to